Ever wonder what makes really creative people tick? Where do their ideas come from? What keeps them energized? What kinds of things get in their way? Is their life really as much fun as it looks from the outside? Hello, I'm your host, Lily Pierpont, and this is ArtStorming, a podcast about how new ideas come to life and become paintings, sculptures, plays, or poems, performances, or collections. Each episode, I'll chat with a guest from the arts community and explore how the most creative among us stare down a blank canvas or reach into the void and create something new. Today, I'll be ArtStorming with Michael Robert Fletcher of Dirty Dancing fame. I met Michael at a holiday party. Now, you have to understand, here in Santa Fe, we don't have that many dress-up occasions. It's a casual place, and when we do dress up, it's sometimes only to clean jeans and like a dressy-ish top. So I arrive at this holiday party, and there across the room is this striking 6-foot-something man, dressed head to toe in red, with a shock of white hair stylishly coiffed and a smile as white and dazzling to match. His laugh greeted me at the door. I had to meet this person. It took me a while to make the rounds, but eventually I approached him and said, "Who are you, you fabulous thing?" I think he said his name, but I announced to him that no matter what his name, he would forever, to me, be Red. So that's how I met Red. I think I may be the only person who calls him that, but he will never be anything other than Red because it's so fitting. He's a star, a dancer, choreographer, a creative of many talents. So without further ado, may I present Michael Robert Fletcher, also known as Juan Llano, who you'll hear about later, also known as my new pal, Red. We are recording, and I am here with Michael Robert Fletcher, who I call Red. Do you go by Michael? I don't even know this because I've called you Red since the minute.
The whole entire night.
Yeah, so
the
Red
Christmas festivities.
Head to toe in red.
Yes.
And I saw you the minute I walked in, and I thought, I have to know who this person is. I mean, and the whole night I kind of figured out how to get to you, and I finally did, and I'm so glad I did. Yeah. And the conversation just, of course, happened really naturally because you're that kind of person.
Yes.
And I'm so thrilled. I've been waiting since December to talk to you, and finally things have kind of lined up. And as craziness would have it, I got the times wrong. And so I am here in my dirty dancing duds because having just come from the dance studio, absolutely dirty as can be.
Yes.
And you're so kind to...
And as your listeners will know, it's very apropos.
Well, it's the lead in. So... we're going to get to some things that I don't know about you, but what I do know about you is the Dirty Dancing thing. And you were just, before we got on mic, talking about the 37th anniversary of Dirty Dancing.
Yes.
And so say again what you just started to tell me about the promotion of that anniversary and your role in the whole thing. I mean, start from scratch so we have a little bit of a background on everything.
I was sharing that I was preparing a little minute video for the press release of this big event at Dirty Dancing Kellerman's, which is Mountain Lake Lodge in Pembroke, Virginia. And they're doing the first time ever Dirty Dancing Festival, music festival. And they're bringing me in as a guest artist of an original cast member, Dirty Dancing principal dancer, from Dirty Dancing, hired by Kenny Ortega, and we're just going to go out there August 16th and 17th, and just be there for the weekend and just have a Dirty Dancing time of my life. And these people, they dress up. It's kind of like a Star Trek thing. They dress up like Baby and Johnny and Penny, and we dance to the soundtracks, which is a wonderful soundtrack. So it's just an amazing, this job that I did in 1986, and here we are 37 years later, still talking about it. So I'm ecstatically happy and excited.
Will all the people who were part of the original cast and be a part of this anniversary?
No, and I hope that happens for our 40th, that the cast and crew that are still here and alive and kicking will show up for the 40th. Now, I might not be the only one. It would be wonderful to hear if Jennifer Grey was showing up or any other cast member, but I'm putting my footprint on it and just be there and support the event and have a good time myself.
Absolutely.
So it's a trip. But
now, Dirty Dancing wasn't your first rodeo. You've been dancing before that, obviously, to be selected for that very special role. So
Yes.
say a little bit more about how you got into dancing and your sort of dance journey.
Yes. Well, it started of being a very active little boy at 5, 6, 7 years old. And my parents, my dad was a doctor, oncologist, and my mom was a publishing writer. Her gig was romantic gothics and doctor nurse romances. And so that's the family I was. But so I was very active. They put an organ in the house. I would not practice, and it's all about practicing. Then they took that out, put a piano in, and it didn't practice. I was just too active. I was, and so finally my mom put me in an acrobatic class. Bingo, that was my gig. And jazz class. And so I've been dancing literally since I was 7 years old and in class. And, I was that one little boy in the back of the room filled with all little girls. But that didn't stop me. Yeah. And I started doing summer stock. I got into the high school performing arts. Wonderful school in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, called the Atlantic Foundation for the Performing Arts. I graduated at 18, 19. I moved straight to New York. I did get a scholarship to go into Houston Ballet, and so that was an honor. But that wasn't
New York.
It wasn't New York, and it wasn't Broadway, and it wasn't
right.
musical theater. So that's what I did. So I moved to New York in the early 80s, which is, I really got the last essence of like Times Square and I actually,
when it was raunchy.
Yeah. And I lived in Times Square when I first moved there behind the Palace Theater.
Oh, wow.
And I think La Cage aux Folles was there and Woman of the Year was closing out. And then I went to Upper East Side and did a lot of theater. I'm going to date myself, but the theater that I was involved with the Schubert organization, was like a Chorus Line, Bob Fosse, Chicago, Evita. So, that was...
And did you dance in all of those shows?
Yes.
Wow.
Along with different music reviews in Puerto Rico and Mexico City. And I even got a chance to go to Osaka, Japan. So... the dancing gave me that gift of travel, of like living and working all over the world. So then, lo and behold, my jazz teacher said, my friend, his name is Kenny Ortega, is here from Los Angeles and is having a private little audition. It's not going to be in the trade papers because if it were, there would be a line around the block with like 500 guys and girls auditioning. So it was very private. It was about like 35 40, 50 people, and auditioned. And by the time I got home, there were no cell phones then. So, you rush home and, you play your little answering machine. And there was a call saying that they wanted to hire me and they wanted to send me a script and call us back. And I did. And they sent over a script to my apartment when I was like, whoa, that's kind of cool. Like just...
Like by messenger or bicycle?
Bicycle, exactly. And when I got the script, it said Dirty Dancing. And I, all the other cast members were like, Dirty Dancing? What, did we just get hired to be in a porn? So I was one of those.
Yeah.
And when I was looking at the cast members the cast that was already hired, I saw Cynthia Rhodes. And she was like a dance idol of mine, from like Cynthia Rhodes and starting at Toto, the band Toto, that song on MTV, Rosanna. And I saw her in Flashdance, and I saw her in Saturday Night. And I was like, okay, I don't know what this is about, but if Cynthia Rhodes is doing it, I'm doing it. So, but I had called my mom going, Mom, I think I got a job doing a film, and it's a... so, but it wasn't like that at all.
Wow. And so how soon after you got that messengered, script, did you actually start filming? And did you go for Virginia for most of that?
Yeah,
film?
they flew us off in like a month. It was like really quick. And they flew us to Virginia. They flew us into Roanoke. The dancers are Dirty Dancing, 4 male principals, 4 female principals. then all the other Dirty Dancing, we called them Atmosphere, which is a better name for extras. But so yeah, we flew out to Virginia. We were out there for a month, which is where I'm going in a couple weeks, to Kellerman's, Pembroke, Virginia, and was there for a month. Did most of the exteriors, but there was a lot of interiors too, and after that they flew us to North Carolina. I'm trying to think, this is like 37 years ago.
Right.
So then we flew into North Carolina. And in Virginia, that month, we were all rehearsing and creating Dirty Dancing. And we were workshopping Dirty Dancing. Like, what is Dirty Dancing?
And was it sort of a co-creation? I mean, obviously there was a choreographer,
yes,
a principal choreographer, but were each of your talents kind of called in
yes,
to kind of do interpretive versions of the choreography? Was it a collaborative project?
Well, the 4 females, 4 males, we spent like 2 weeks being coupled together. And I feel like my dance partner was a match made in heaven with Dorian Sanchez. And so in that workshop, the choreographer Kenny Ortega really used everybody's individuality. So if this dancer did this beautiful back bend and up, and so she was the back bend girl, she was the limber girl. Then this guy is like, for instance, me, I was like from New York, and I'm chewing gum, and we created characters, and I was just off on guard. But everybody had their own individuality, and then he brought it together. So there's a lot of spontaneity. There was a lot of improving, and so he brought the best out of each artist. It's not like they were told what to do and how to do it. They were like, we had like the skeleton of Dirty Dancing, which was, the grinding and the dipping. And then you got to put your own personality. So it was so much fun. It was, like...
Well, it must be why it has endured, because you have that freshness and that aliveness, and it wasn't just, a bunch of robots being told what to do.
And I think that's a big part of why the recipe of Dirty Dancing, the ingredients were just, everybody was just so perfect at what, like Kelly Bishop as, Mrs. Houseman, and there's Jerry Orbach. Everybody came in and just gave them what they had to give. And we all wanted to do a really good job for Kenny Ortega, our choreographer, and for Eleanor Bergstein, the producer, writer. Because we did not know, nobody knew that it was going to be talking about this 37 years later, and, this fan-based group from all over the world, these precious Dirty Dancing fans. Nobody knew, but we knew we wanted to do a great job to make everybody happy.
So how do you top an experience like that? I mean, as a dancer, having done all of these other extraordinary things in New York, first of all, just to be a kid from Florida who ends up in some of the big dance venues, in the world. I mean, New York is the place to be. Yeah. And to come up through the ranks and then to end up in a musical context of a film that's still being talked about 37 years later. What was your next act?
Well, my next act was to move out of New York and, put Broadway and musical theater on the back burner and moved to LA and just start, it first started as like, sleeping on one of the other Dirty Dancers' sofa for a week and get my own place and just test out the waters in LA and film and television, which is what I did. And
so that gave you the taste for film and television.
Oh, yeah.
So, and how is it different from being on the stage? I'm just curious.
Good question. And I have the answer. Someone with like kind of PTSD personality or ADHD, like doing musical theater, you sign a contract and you're doing like 8-9 performances a week and you're doing the same thing. And I'm the type of performer that I give my best and my most original, authentic performance is opening night. And from there, it just kind of goes slowly down. And by, 8-9 months into it, I'm a robot. I'm doing the same exact thing, and and it's not authentic, and it's just like it's not pleasing to an artist. In LA, you have a little bit of rehearsal, you shoot it like 2-3 times and it's done with, and you move on to another completely original artistic endeavor.
So that worked better for you,
and it
rhythm
worked
personally.
Yes,
Yeah.
just keep doing all these different. So I did a lot of film work, nonstop. Since Dirty Dancing, it opened up doors for me, and I really never stopped working. And I had agents that I was like pounding on their doors, go represent me. And once Dirty Dancing came out, they were calling me going, hey, we have your resume and it says Dirty Dancing, and we'd like you to come in. We'd love to represent you. I'm like, oh, now you do. But they gave me the old slide your picture underneath the door. Don't call us, we'll call you kind of thing. So that really happens.
Right. Wow. So once you started in film, you obviously you got the taste for that, and then you continued with that. And there's this other nom de plume or something that you have, this other name that you use.
Yes.
So say a little bit about that. Was that your stage name versus choreographer name, or what is?
Yeah. Well, I was pursuing acting in LA, and as an actor or whatever you do, you really have to come in like you do one thing. You can't come in and say, I'm a designer, I'm a dancer, I'm a choreographer, I'm a costume. You have to focus in. So I was focusing on being an actor, and Michael Fletcher just was not a Latino name, and I guess I could have been like Miguel Fletcher, but I took a character out of one of my mom's books. I took a character, the leading male character out of one of her books, and it was Juan Llano. Juan Llano, Llano. And Llano in Spanish means field. So I thought that was really pretty. So I I changed my name to Juan Llano. And,
So
and that's
what went on your head.
So when, and I did these really Latino photographs, 8x10 photos. And so when I came in, and the first impression was Juan Llano, and so it's stuck. Now, in the present day, I've gone back to Michael Robert Fletcher, and I did a lot of film work as a choreographer under Juan Llano. So I had some injuries in there in the 90s when I moved to LA, and took those lemons of kind of ripping both my hamstrings, falling down a flight of stairs.
Ouch.
Changed my focus.
Trajectory, yeah.
Yes. So I always loved creating, and I have a personality of telling people what to do.
How was it different to be directed than to be the director?
Well, I love it. My father died when I was young, 7 years old, and I think somebody just said, little boy, now you're the man of the house. I took that serious. So at 7 years old, I felt like I was taking care of the house, I was taking care of my mom, and that personality. And then, in my late 20s, I had my daughter, whose mother's name is Lily.
Oh.
So that's a very beautiful name. So that was 28, 29, and that became, taking care of this human being. So with that same persona, that same energy of taking care of my mom, and I, my mom gave me a gift of saying that I could be whatever I want to be. If I went to the FIT Fashion Institute of Technology in New York, because my mom said, well, you're great at fashion and drawings. And so I pursued that, and I got accepted into that. So I wanted to choreograph. I had my own ideas. And
when you had your own ideas for choreography, did you see, since you're a visual person, did you see the whole thing, in full costume, in full set, in full everything, or was it more seeing the dance and the movement through the set?
Well, I visualize. I can choreograph a whole show. I can choreograph a whole number. Just sitting at my desk with a cassette tape recorder and pushing play, rewind, play, rewind, and with a pad and paper, and just write everything that comes in my head. I can see the wardrobe, I can see the sets, I can see the music, I can feel the music,
It's like a composer, hearing all.
And I don't have to get up, I don't need to be in a dance studio with mirrors. It's just all up here. As long as I have my pad and paper, I write it down. And so and I started an entertainment company somewhere in the 90s in that time, and it lasted about 6 years, Eden Entertainment, and within a business partnership, and we ended up choreographing like 3 heavy hitter feature films with like Liam Neeson and Sandra Bullock and Jude Law and national commercials for Barbie, Mattel Barbie, and Cadillac Escalade, and so that gave me the inspiration. And I go back and I look at my resume and I'm like, wow, those are really great films. I'm like, we're so hard on ourselves. Like, we're not ever good enough. And I go back, you don't realize until you look back going, wow, I was really strong, or I was really brave, or I was really creative. So I try to, in my older age right now, I try to tell me that every minute of what I'm, and I'm still in film and television choreographing.
Wow. Do you ever have the imagination of, or the image of going back to that 7-year-old self who lost your dad and kind of comfort you into,
this is
I'm being shown a photograph of Michael as a cowboy holding it's a guitar. It's not a ukulele. It's a guitar.
That's when I would only answer to Cowboy Mike.
Cowboy Mike.
And my mom did that sketch, a pencil sketch of me.
Oh my gosh, this is precious. And a nice drawing as well.
But also, it's like, psychologically, when I'm really hard on myself, I look at that picture going, come on, be nice to yourself.
Right. I think we could all do that, artist or non-artist. But artists have a tendency to be, kind of exacting and different. And it's interesting because I think it's the temperament that you have to push yourself past your comfort zone so much to be a successful artist, to show up day in, day out.
That's what it's all about.
And that's really is from everybody else.
Finding your authenticity.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, that's such a great picture. So is your mom still with us?
No, she passed like 2002.
Oh, wow. But your mom at least got to see your success along the way and watch you just blossom.
And she was the type of parent that she would follow me around, come to wherever I was performing.
Oh,
cool. And I also did the Dirty Dancing concert tour in 1988. And we toured around the U.S. to sold-out arenas, but we opened up a week, sold-out performances in Radio City Music Hall. And I got her fifth row center for the opening night, and so. Wow. But my mom, my Jewish mother, is always like, she's like, Michael, you should have been the lead. And when she saw Dirty Dancing, she was like, that Patrick Swayze, he was really good, but you should have been Johnny. I'm like, oh, Mom, come on.
Well,
but that's my Jewish mother,
Of course.
And that's the strength and the confidence and, and the courage she gave me to go out and be in this crazy entertainment world, because you got to just go out and have fun.
Yeah. Well, so that's just a crazy question, but she's Latina. Is she she's Jewish,
yes.
but is she Jewish Latina, or she's just Jewish? And your father was the Latino?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a curious. How did they meet?
These are the questions I wish I had when she was alive. And I think we all go through that with our parents. And then sometimes it's too late, but I think we're bringing up our kids now to like ask more questions. And that's one of the questions I would be like, how did you meet?
Oh, that's, I feel that because I lost both my parents at an early age as well. But so given that, do you share a lot with your daughter? Do you still have a relationship with your daughter?
Yes.
And do you tell her a lot of the stuff that that she probably won't remember to ask until it maybe is too late?
Yeah. Well, my mom brought me up with hundreds of pictures. So, I have so many photo albums, and I can go back, and that's that's a scrapbook. That's a diary of your life.
Sure.
So, and it brings back memories, and there's so many things I would not have remembered unless I go through that scrapbook. And so I do the same. Those things that like, oh, Mom, you're so embarrassing. Then you grow up and you become a parent and you're like exactly the same way.
Yeah.
You're like, oh my gosh, my mom did that. I take lots of pictures and just journal and just have that there for her. The gift that keeps on giving. Well,
it is, and I think that as we progress and get to be this age, life takes on a richness, don't you think? And you say you look back on all those things, and you look at this little 7-year-old version of yourself, and it's really quite amazing. The drive that it took, the disappointments, So do you work now with students that are coming through the ranks? Are you working mostly with adult dancers as choreographers? Like, where are you focused now?
Yeah. I think a lot of my time I'm putting into youth. And how inspiring is that? It's like you're giving your wisdom, your knowledge, and passing it on, the baton. And so I was doing a lot of fundraising for a ballet company in Albuquerque. Well, with Patricia Dickinson. And then also, I just finished a week working on this pageant, the New Mexico Cinderella Scholarship Program. And that's like working with these young ladies that I had a preconceived, it's going to be the little young lady, 7 years old with big hair and makeup, and they look like they're 40 years old, and it wasn't at all. And it's a scholarship program, and it's a way of teaching these young ladies public speaking, work as a team member, the camaraderie, and it was everything that. And they would have the casual wear, the dress-up formal wear, and no makeup, maybe a little lip gloss, it was all natural, and it was such an amazing experience. So I love doing more things like that. And
so really helping them become embodied, which we know as dancers is something, it's like that's a really fundamental thing to, if you can learn to be in your body,
yes,
you can go into the world
yes,
much more powerfully.
Because it's not just about going and being a professional dancer for the rest of your life or an actress, but taking all those skills of camaraderie and teamwork and taking it to wherever they go, whether they're going to sell proper, like a real estate agent or whatever, but they have those same skills that fit in every profession.
Sure.
So I love that. So gratifying.
Yeah. Do you find that there are more boys entering into the dance universe now?
Yes, it's wonderful. That's why I said back then, it was like I was the only boy in the back, but I had no problem with it. But now, I also took a choreography teachers program, certified teachers program with the National Dance Institute. This Jacques Dembois was a creator, and he was a principal dancer with like ABT or American Ballet Theater, and he started this school, and we have one of those schools here in New Mexico. Have you heard of it? National Dance Institute, NDI, Dance Barn.
Sure.
Yes.
Sure.
So I was teaching there and did their choreography boot camp training.
They've done I've seen some amazing performances there.
And then they take their program and go to the reservations, which is so, and then they all come together at the end of the year and they do this big concerts, all the kids from this reservation and this reservation, and they do this outlandish, profound performance, and they're smiling, and pretty much almost half the kids are boys, and they're smiling and they're having a great time, and it's fantastic.
Yeah, but fast forward or back to you. Tell me a little bit more about the difference between what it was like to be the only kid in the back of the room, the only boy in the back of the room surrounded by girls. Did you feel included? Did you feel peer pressure? What was that like being a boy who wanted to dance?
Nothing is coming to me that says I was not wanting to be there, being surrounded by girls, or nothing negative. I just was there participating and enjoying the music and the movement, and I think that was maybe a way my mom brought me up. And I've always been surrounded by women, after my father passed, I was with my mom, and my mom was second youngest of 5 sisters. So I had all my aunts, and most of my prime cousins, first cousins, were female, and so
that was familiar. It was really.
It was just familiar, I guess, that the female energy, and when you got to Broadway, did you find that your male cohort were as supportive, or was there more competition? How was that for you when you got introduced to more of a male saturated context? I don't, were you supportive of each other? Was there competition? Well, I think once you get the job, you become a little family in that show, and you go through rehearsals together, and you've already had like going through the auditions together, which is very bonding. And then when you show up for the first day of rehearsal, there's a bonding. But the auditions itself is another, a lot of intimidation. People that can do splits, they're in the lobby and they're stretching their ankle way up to their ear.
Showing their bravado.
They're showing, and flashing their peacock feathers, and it can be intimidating, especially if you're in a room, with a room full of people that look like you. Like they're all Latino, they're all dark hair, or brown skin.
Would that be because the audition called for somebody with that sort of look?
Yes. And in LA, in Hollywood, it's more particular. They're looking for a specific type. New York, it was more, all around.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and when you say type, were they looking for height, body build, as well as ethnicity, or was it, they were?
It's pretty specific.
Very specific.
Even, I remember auditioning for Bob Fosse, and before I even danced for him, kind man, and I really appreciated this, was he came to me and shook my hand and said, "Thank you for coming. You are too tall. And I'm sure you're a terrific dancer, but you're too tall." And as I've learned, Bob Fosse only hired dancers, like 5'8", 5'6", 5'8", 5'9", the tallest. And I was like 6'1". So, but I really appreciated that I didn't even get into dance clothes. He's like, "I'm sure you're a terrific dancer, but to answer your question, once you got past that audition and the psyching people out and all that, and all the nerves it takes to just audition and learn, 20 counts of 8 in 2 minutes, and in a room with 80 people, that took training in itself. When you graduate or you move to New York and you start auditioning for all these professional companies and everything, you don't learn in school how to audition. That just takes you have to get out in the world and start audition. I worked in New York. I was living and working and training with the best teachers, and I didn't get my first job until 2 years after I lived there. And I know why. I never gave a good audition.
Well, between auditions, were you dancing with a company, or was it a studio where you could go and practice every day? And did you have a cohort of people that you all learned about the same audition about the same time, and so you were going kind of as a pack to these auditions, or how did that, tell me more about
Well, no, I was more freelancing, though. Everybody's individual. I had, I studied with David Howard School of Ballet. I did tap with Phil Black. I was at Broadway Center and Steps 74th.
Steps on Broadway.
Steps on Broadway, and that's every day, like 6 days a week. Every morning I was in ballet class, at David Howard School of Ballet, and ballet bar is like the same for everybody. Sure. So I'd look over, and in my class was Mikhail Baryshnikov and Gelsey Kirkland, but no, you just do your training, and then you get the trade papers backstage in Showtime, and you just audition for anything and everything, and you get to be like where you build the self-confidence, and you go in and you kind of like put yourself in a little bubble, and all this intimidating things don't affect you. They just kind of bounce off you. And it took 2 years for me to like land a really great job, and first time I gave a really excellent audition, and I got the job. Out of there was 200 guys auditioning, and they wanted 2 guys, and I was one of the 2.
Wow.
But it was 2 years of training.
But so back up, when you were so you get to New York, you get your first little apartment on Times Square.
Yes.
You're going to your first ballet class in the morning, and you're paying to go to these classes. I'm assuming that you're paying to go.
Yes.
So you're paying for rent, you're paying for and everybody's like fingers and toes crossed that they get their first gig, and it takes you 2 years to do that. How on earth did you support yourself in that? I mean, did you have some family help, or were you doing side gigs, or?
Yeah, well, no, God bless my mom. She was always there to.
So you had that family support.
Yes.
That's great.
But also, my mom at 13 years old was like, "Okay, no more birthday parties. You're working. Go get a job." I was like, "What?" But no, I worked, like one of my first two jobs in New York where I worked at is it the 46th Street Theater? But anyway, Nine was there starring Raul Julia, the Broadway musical Nine. And I worked there as an usher, one of my first jobs. I also got a job at Radio City Music Hall, and I ran the elevators for the Rockettes.
Cool.
In which I got fired because I forgot to use the key. The elevator went up. I had half the Rockettes there. That performance, that number, there was only half the stage filled. The other was empty because they were in my elevator. Needless to say, I came back to work the next day and I was fired.
Oh, God.
It wasn't like I was so sad that I lost a job. I was just the idea of getting fired. I was bawling my eyes out on the sidewalk.
I'm sorry to laugh. That's so. I mean, I'm sorry. I'm sure it was horrifying for you at the time. But what a great story.
But no, I had a lot of jobs.
Hustle, and I think that one of the reasons that I'm asking is because, a lot of people. I don't know what people think. I don't even me as an aspiring young dancer who was dissuaded from doing it because of the hardships. That it
rejections
were required and rejections and the body shaming and all this stuff. So I think that for somebody like you who hit it big. The other sacrifices, the payoff is that you get to do what you love to do.
Yes.
And then there's that backstory about all the things you had to do in order to do those things, like getting fired from,
So that song from A Chorus Line comes to mind, What We Did for Love. What I Did for Love. So true.
Yeah. Wow. And so when did you stop having to do the side gigs when did it become sort of a sustainable, fluid?
Well, I got more creative in my side work, where my side work was, I and my friend, that we both graduated in Fort Lauderdale, Florida from the High School of Performing Arts. We were both ending up living in LA, and they were starting to take out the art and the music and the dance from schools. So we started this after-school curricular of a little performing arts package and of dance singing and having little twice a year little performances for the parents and we had 6 schools on Ventura, in Sherman Oaks and Ventura, but. So that was a side work, and there were 2 of us. So if one of us had auditions, the other one could pick up the classes, or vice versa.
Have you been in touch with any? Did any of those kids go on to do anything significant that you know of?
No, I don't know, but I know we had a lot of celebrity kids. One time Billy Idol came to pick up his daughter. And I was waiting, and then I was like, "When's your dad coming?" "Oh, he's coming. He's coming." "Oh, there he is." I'm like, Billy Idol's her father? So that was always a treat.
And so how long were you in California before you came to Santa Fe?
10 years, So I moved to LA in 1988, 89, and my husband and I came to, on a vacation to Santa Fe, in 2001. Then a year later, we were out here looking for houses, so then we had moved here in 2002. So I've been here about 22
years.
Going on 23 years. No regrets. And I didn't even come here to choreograph. After being born in Miami and raised in New York and lived in LA for 10 years, when we came here, it was just this little exhale. It was you can just exhale and
relax
and the beauty and the majestic mountains and that George O'Keeffe sunsets. And I was and my husband Frank goes, "Would you ever think of moving there?" I was like, "Yes, I would," and just bring it down a notch, And lo and behold, when we moved here, there was a film industry here, and there were about 2-3 major heavy hitter films going on here. And now there's 10 to a dozen heavy hitter films going on here with heavy hitter actors. So I'm I'm not retiring.
You can have the best of both worlds.
Yeah. And this is such a creative town. There's this event. It's a hip hop event coming up. I think the 9th, downtown the Rail Yard District.
Oh, really?
And it's event of the year to go.
Well, it's amazing to me how much dance there is in this small little town. Of course, this small little town is packed with everything arts.
Yes.
I mean, there are writers and musicians and artists and sculptors and, of every kind, but particularly dance. And
Really?
I've had at least 3 people on the show who are dancers and dance-centric, and not any one of you knows each other.
Yeah.
So, it's just, and it keeps going on and on and on, just the levels of dancing. So, do you concentrate, are your in your friend groups when you're social with your husband?
Yeah.
Do you socialize with other dancers? Who
We do.
Who is your social circle?
Well, there's a dear friend that we love to go see, Emmy, and she does flamenco, and she's phenomenal. And we met her like when we first moved here, and she was just like such a young lady, and now she's been training in Argentina and all over the world, and La Emmy, and we usually see her at the lodge in Santa Fe, and she's a wonderful person to look out for, and but it's funny when I was listening to you when I first moved here and going to. And this is an amazing place to be when you go to gallery openings. You actually meet the artists here. And you can talk to them and ask them questions or sign your poster. You can't do that in LA. There's security. They won't even let you near the artist.
Oh, is that true?
So that was always a treat when I moved here.
I've never gone to an opening in LA unless I knew the artist.
Yeah. And people would say, "Oh, what do you do?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm an artist." And they're like, "Oh, yeah. Oh, really great. Do you do sculptures? Do you do bronze? Are you a watercolorist? Oils?" I'm like, "No, I'm a choreographer." And they're like, "Choreographer, really? Oh, I'm going to go get a drink. Nice talking to you." I'm like, never asked me what I did, or what I choreograph, or and that was back in early 2000s. So I think the dance community is really built up. And this is, a future project of mine that I've been working on for the past year now. The idea of it and finding the right people and the team to be able to put this up on its feet is bringing choreographers together. And those choreographers would bring in their dancers and make an event and make it an evening event where the audience comes in. And I want to, I have a great name for it, and I need to trademark that before I throw it out. But it's a place that you could just the audience would come in, and you're going to be in the dance world from the moment you walk in the door, and it's going to be kind of burlesque or, Kit Kat bar, and you can bring your boas and just wear like a leopard skin jacket and just show up and dance and be surrounded by dancers, but bring in those choreographers that brought in their dancers. So you're going to have a variety
it's like a flash mob meets.
Yes.
Please do that. That sounds so much fun.
We need something like that.
Yeah, David Byrne did something during COVID.
Oh my gosh, I love him.
I haven't yet found it. I keep meaning to look for it.
David Byrne from Talking Heads?
Yes.
Okay.
So he did this thing during COVID where he got, how during COVID we all did those Zoom calls with like the different tiles? He had people dancing. And he actually, I could be wrong about this, but I want to say he used the Park Avenue Armory as a space, and everybody had, were 6 feet apart, and he did these movement sessions during COVID so that people could actually stay active and engaged.
Yeah.
And I now that I've remembered that, I would need to go back and research it. But what you just described would be so much fun, and I think it
would just be a ball, literally, it would be like this moving dancing ball, and that when you go to a ball, you want to just be fancy or eccentric or creative or avant-garde or campy. Campy is the perfect word. Yeah. Come and be campy.
That would be so. Yeah. In fact, during COVID, speaking of COVID, when we were all in lockdown, I started something called the Santa Fe Arts Club, and I think you know about. Anyway, it was just an online presence. Originally, I wanted it to be a brick and mortar thing, modeled after the Chelsea Arts Club in London. And what they do is they have rooms, and you can stay there, reciprocal, arrangements with other arts clubs. But once a year, they have a ball. And it's basically this kind of thing, but it's all of the artists combined in Santa Fe. So I thought it would be really fun to do something like that here in Santa Fe. I'm not going to pursue the brick and mortar thing, but I always just love the idea of doing like one night a year where all the artists come out in their full regalia, and it would be such a perfect, venue for that kind of thing, where it was like, they have in other cities, they have like the black and white ball, or they have these, where people come, and sometimes
fire and ice ball.
And sometimes the location isn't even released until right before it's going to happen. Yes. And I guess in a city like Santa Fe, we'd have to get permits and whatever to do a flash mob or a pop-up thing. But wouldn't that be so much fun?
No, we need to do that.
Because there's something about this, and one of the things I've been asking my guests in this series is, what is it, do you think, about Santa Fe for you? You described your first experience coming here and what it was like and how it captured your imagination. But what do you think it is about Santa Fe that makes it such a mecca for so many creatives?
Well, there's something in the air. We've got special air. We have like sacred ground. We're walking on sacred dirt. I wouldn't put it past that it has something, to do with like the magic, the enchantment, and people come here to be enchanted, and then they get entrapped, and they're living here. So,
and actually, of course, there's that saying that it either sucks you in or spits you out. So there is something about that sort of gravitational pull or magnetic, thing that repels people. Yeah. So I mean, you either
like in Sedona has the vortexes,
right?
Santa Fe and New Mexico has, but there's something, that I think we all have something we relate here, and it's very spiritual. And everybody has their different way, through their vocabulary. It's, it's different for every person. But I think people come from all over the world here and all over the country. And it's this path that we come here, and, it's being authentic, and it's being real. And
it feels very deliberate, doesn't it? I mean, almost everybody that I know that I spoke to who's come to Santa Fe came for a reason, and they have their story. They've left something behind that may have been, a source of their success or whatever. They come here to discover something. And there's something, there's a quality here, and I haven't quite, in all the conversations that I've had.
And there's this self-enlightenment that's in there.
Yeah.
Of becoming our best selves here,
No, I think it's true.
It's like meeting you at a Christmas party, and you calling me Red all that evening, and I was like, it was a treat, and you were unforgettable. It was like, that's what, I was calling you. When are we going to do this podcast?
I'm so glad.
I want to have fun with you.
And I want to continue to have fun with you. So I'm curious, your Latin roots, how does it feel being in Santa Fe as somebody who's Latino? Did you connect with it even more? Is your partner of any...
Yes, my partner is like 8th generation Spaniard Mexican from San Fernando, California. Big family. I don't come from a big family, so I just love his family. I don't know, I don't really connect with, it's been an eye-opener. It's like the culture here is very strong. The family value is very strong. And I love seeing big families and how tight they are and how dedicated they are to their family. And that's very, very profound for me. And, I'm an only child, and then, my father passing when I was a young kid. So family is everything to me, my daughter, to create this, be a part of this creation of this little miracle you bring, and you just want to give them the best of life and the tools, and I think the new generation of parents are just amazing, and they're just giving this gift to their kids of, that you can be anything you want to be, and
well, you've kind of created an extended family for yourself by giving back to the youth and the things that you're doing with them. Yes. So even if you don't have your own large family, I mean, where is your daughter living?
She's in California. In California.
Yeah. Does she come to visit you in Santa Fe?
Not very often, no. Yeah.
But you've got these
I have
other
to go
kids
there.
Here. Well, that's not terrible.
Yeah, no, it's not terrible.
But so these kids, you get to be with these kids. And I think there's something about Santa Fe too. It's like you said, it's in the earth.
Yeah.
And there's something that, obviously we live in a multicultural existence here with the Native American intersecting with the Latino and intersecting with the Anglo.
Yeah.
And I think it becomes part of the energy of this place.
Yeah.
And family is very much a part of that. I don't come from a big family either, so I can relate to your experience more probably than your partner's.
Yeah.
It's cool to have that, and it's so nice that you're giving back in that generational way to this next group of people coming through, and probably great for their parents too, because it's nice for the parents to be able to give their kids over to an after school program of some kind and let them learn about being in the world in that way.
No, everything just, like if someone says, well, I'm interested in being a professional dancer, I'm like, just the skills, the personality and your tools that you need, and I love giving that back, and so they have their resume, they have their, 3-minute reel, they have what they need to go out and do it if that's the profession they want to.
In a room full of kids, can you spot the ones that have the shine?
Yeah, I love casting. A lot of my projects I cast, and I always say I rather have a less technical, less trained person if they're there and they're eager and they want to learn and they come and they arrive and they know their choreography. They're on time, they're kind. Those are like 3 things that get you far no matter what you do. Show up on time, be kind, know your stuff. I am more attracted to that than someone who is so technically trained but they have this kind of like air of arrogance and
or aloofness.
And so, but and I'd rather go with that someone who may be less trained, but they have something special, And
how do you think, you talked about technique, but how does personality play into what is required for a dancer?
Very important. It's like, like what we're saying, like, oh, I can't wait to have some fun with you and do this interview. You have to show up and have fun, because life is short, and I like the ones that show up and they're, they want to create a character or, they have fun with it and play with it. Yeah.
Have you seen anybody come in who sort of was a little bit reticent or a little bit of a wallflower and then watch them blossom?
Yes, and I can relate to that because that was me. I was so shy, and that's why my mom, I never talked except to my mom, and she put me in children's theater, and and through the dance and the performing arts, I came out of my little bubble. So I completely connect with, and I feel like I can see. And I think the greatest gift is to let them know that, that to open up a door for them to say, I want more. And I know you have it inside you, and those were the best teachers and the coaches that I had going. Those ones that saw something in me, like the artistic director in performing arts, she was like, she saw something in me and she was pulling it out of me. And I always remember her from, back when I was a teenager going, wow, what a gift that they saw something in me and they opened up and invited me to be who I was.
Well, it's a kind of magic to be seen.
Yeah.
I mean, it really
validated.
is. It's really important. And then I guess the trick for any artist is that after they've had that experience of being seen is to keep cultivating it and keep self-generating, because there's not always going to be somebody out there to make you feel seen.
Yes.
So you have to kind of generate it for yourself.
Yeah,
right?
well, it's life-changing because once, it's like, a lion, once it tastes blood, well, once you taste that, standing in line and you're in the front of the line and or you were picked out because you were special or you really, gave it your all, that is so validating. And like you said, to be seen, to be validated is so important, and they have a taste of it and they want more.
What what's your relationship to like how dance comes through you? Does it feel like you're an instrument and the dance comes through you, or do you feel like you're self-generating the dance? What's that experience like for you?
Well, and this is why I like choreographing my own, because it's different than being a dancer and learning another choreographer's steps and idea. But if I'm working with a choreographer and I think back, I basically am his instrument. Mm-hmm. And I learn like a robot. I learn the steps, and I plant that in my brain. But when it comes to performance, all of a sudden there's what I have to give to it. And so you get kind of, I guess it's kind of undescribable, but and that's why I say an opening performance, I do my best. Mm-hmm. That's my biggest
Something
performance.
Something really comes through. Yeah.
And it's so authentic. So then the second, third, at the 80th performance, it doesn't have that.
So when you're the choreographer and you've got other people dancing your music or
yes.
your choreography, can you tell when somebody is adding their own
yes.
something to it versus when they've done it for the 45th time kind of thing?
Yes.
How do you keep your dancers energized and in
fresh.
That first moment? Yeah. Is that something one can even teach or listen?
I think that's something that they have to have inside them. And I don't like to have like 8 people on stage being exactly the same, the same smile, the same, I like everybody to be individual. I like to bring out like everybody's individuality. So Susie to the right is doing the same steps, but she's giving the essence of who she is, along with Bobby on the left, who's doing something, the same steps, but is giving something from his heart and his soul. And it's just so powerful. And I think this is the recipe that, I so admire Kenny Ortega in Dirty Dancing, where he hired these 8 dancers that were so different physically and come from different parts of the country, and pulled them together and made this powerful project of everybody giving something of their own essence. So that's how I work also.
Yeah, it sounds like that.
I'd be silly if I didn't work that way.
Right. Well, it sounds like he was a huge influence, and how great that you get to go back in just a couple of weeks, or just about a week, to go re-experience that whole whatever that was experience, and hopefully see some of the same people. And if not this time, for the 40th anniversary, we'll
be back.
And I think we'll wrap it up right there, and wish you all the best for
August 16th.
16th.
Well, thank you. I hope I made some sense.
Yes, it was a fantastic conversation.
Okay.
Well, thanks for joining us today. Please like and follow us on artstorming.org, where you'll find a list of our shows, a transcript of this episode with links to the guest page, as well as our other projects. ArtStorming is brought to you and supported by ArtBridge and listeners like you. Look for us on your favorite podcast platforms.